Hello. I want to talk about triggers today. Sensitive subject for some, but triggers are everywhere. Have you ever noticed you're suddenly reacting to something or someone in like an excessive way? Like when someone cuts you off in traffic and you lay on the horn and you curse at them and you're like angry because they don't seem to respect anyone else's life or safety. Or when you're talking to someone and they say something that evokes a strong emotional response in you, like that comment might have usually annoyed you, but you've reacted a little extra today. Like those are triggers. Sometimes it's the things we experience, but it can also be people, situations, places. There's different ways triggers show up for us in our lives. And when we feel triggered by something, it's a call to pay attention to that thing, to that trigger. As I've mentioned before, everything is energy. Every thought, every emotion, our exchanges and interactions with people, those are all examples of energy expressing, transmuting, and impacting how we experience our world. So, like when I think negative things, it lowers my frequency. It lowers the energetic frequency that I emit out to the world. Humans have this like fluid, dynamic ability to shift their energy, whereas something like a plant would sit in the same energy all the time. No, because when it's blooming, it would have different frequencies as well. But we're very dynamic in our ability to raise or lower our vibration, depending on how we're thinking, how we're feeling, and how we're corresponding with our experiences. So anytime energy is moving, whether it's within the body or outside the body, showing up in our experiences with our environment, we're receiving feedback about our world. We're universal feedback is what it really is. We're receiving information that's saying, yes, do this, or maybe don't do that, or you maybe need to pay attention over here. And really, universal feedback isn't that difficult to understand, or it's not that difficult to decode once we understand it. So I just want to talk a little bit about what this feedback is and how we can make the best of it. What's tricky for us is how we often react to this feedback. And what tends to get in our way is our ego, especially triggered feedback that shows up as a trigger. Our ego gets in the way. And the ego has a place. It serves a function. It's meant to keep us safe. It is a little voice inside of us that says, no, you need to focus on self-preservation right now. You shouldn't do that. You should do this. Or it has us come from a place where we don't necessarily even want to come from, because that's what its job is to protect us and keep us safe. So, but when we're constantly operating from a place of ego, then that when we operate from that place of those ego-driven behaviors and decisions, it gives our ego power, if that makes sense. We give it power by allowing it to control our decisions and our thinking. And so it can influence what we do and how we think and the things we decide to do. If we're used to making very selfish decisions, that is likely the ego saying, hey, pay attention to self-preservation here. This is important. So it has a place, but it doesn't need to be the boss. It's not a ruler of our internal workings. But it's a part of us for a reason. And so the ego needs love, just like our shadow needs love. And the shadow being like the parts of us that we hide away because we've been told that those parts are not attractive, they're not desirable, they're not serving a purpose or being helpful. So there are those parts of us that we hide away. And I think even it's fair to say that the shadow exists as a part of the ego function. But what we can do when we notice the ego trying to be in control of us is simply acknowledge it, thank it for doing its job and trying to keep us safe, and then reframe our thinking in that moment. Some of our deeply entrenched beliefs are strongly supported by the ego for the same reason the ego exists. We have deep beliefs that we took on often when we were younger that came from situations where we were learning how to be safe in our world, how to fit in, how to belong, how to be able to be competent. And so it's, again, important to recognize that those beliefs have a purpose, that the ego has a purpose, to let it be without judgment, but to also realize that we have other control mechanisms that can actually move us forward and improve our growth and our expansion. So there's two ways we can respond to universal feedback. One is to react from that egoistic stance. And this is like, an example would be like if I get angry because my friend is making the same bad choices over and over again. Why can't she figure this out? Like, I watch the same thing happen. I can see it so clearly. Why can't she? Or I can notice my reaction to that and I can ask myself why I'm being triggered by that. Often when we're making judgments about other people, it's because something's being mirrored to us about something we don't like about ourselves. So that becomes an opportunity for us to say, okay, well, wait a second, I'm being triggered. What is this really about? It's not about them, it's about me. And then we can do a little bit of personal investigation around that. Triggers are feedback that help us to see where our pain points are, so we can grow through them. It's a process of healing, really. It's about noticing moments where we feel like, why is this happening to me? Or why is this happening again? Oh, this keeps happening over and over again. I keep trying this, and this is always the outcome. If we shift that into a perspective of learning, we can ask instead, what is this trying to show me about myself? Or what is the lesson or the message in this experience for me? And just reframing that initial reaction to a trigger can create a pivot point for us. Another form of feedback that shows up is synchronicities. And these are often referred to in the world as coincidences. But I've been paying close attention, and I don't believe that there's such a thing as a coincidence. Everything that happens is on purpose. All feedback is a learning opportunity. So whether it shows up as a trigger or as a synchronicity, that's like being tapped on the shoulder by the universe. Excuse me, you need to pay attention to this over here right now. It's sort of the extremes of the feedback that we might receive. It'll show up as a very elating, awesome thing like a synchronicity, or it might show up as a trigger, which we don't always love, and it forces us to look at ourselves, and that's not always that comfortable. But shifting from that, why is this happening to me, to what is this trying to teach me, is hugely powerful in your own perspective and outlook on life and how life is happening to you or through you. It's your choice and how you think about that. Synchronicities are so freaking cool. I don't know. Do you ever look at the clock and see like 11:11 or 2:22 or 3:33? Like, those are synchronicities. That's universal feedback. Those are known as angel numbers, and they mean different things. You can look into like what numbers mean when they show up. If you're curious about that, that is numerology. And we follow this woman, Joy Kingsborough. You can follow her on YouTube. She has a community of some amazing souls that she works with on Facebook. The group is called Numerology Junkies. And it's just people that have learned about and are playing with numbers and noticing numbers and noticing the energy that the numbers bring. It all means something. And it all goes way back in history. It's not a new age woohoo thing that's just shown up. It's been around for a really long time. So just a sidebar there, but that's a really neat community to follow. So angel numbers are one way. Numbers are one way that feedback shows up for us in terms of synchronicity. And then, another synchronicity could be like, have you ever been like thinking about a friend you haven't talked to in a long time? You're like, I wonder how that person's doing. And then before you get a chance to text them, they text you. That's a synchronicity. That's a message. That probably means you need to reach out to that person and book a coffee date with them and catch up. There might be a bigger purpose or reason for reuniting with them than you realize in that moment. You're just like, oh, that's a neat thing that happened, but get curious about it. Dive into that. See what it's about. It's really neat. So those are like synchronicities and triggers. Like I said, those are kind of the extreme ends of how feedback shows up. Feedback shows up all day, every day. Once you start paying attention to it, you'll see it everywhere. And it can show up in less emotionally jarring ways than synchronicities and triggers. Like I said, like every interaction that we have with other people, for example, any energy exchange that we experience is feedback. So when you're at the grocery store and a stranger comments on something you're wearing or asks your opinion on a particular product, like that's feedback. It's not a random happenstance that person struck up a conversation with you. It's actually very likely that you have something to gain from that conversation and interaction. And probably it goes both ways because there's this law of reciprocity in the world where, you know, I learn from you, you learn from me. That's what we're kind of here to do. So if you pay attention, you will notice this feedback occurring for you all the time. And when you start focusing on that feedback as learning and growth opportunities, then you will see things begin to shift. It will bring peace to you. It will help you communicate easier with people. You'll be able to let go of things quicker, and you'll begin to allow the universe to guide you in the right direction. That's essentially what's happening here. Maybe don't do that over here. Maybe try this over here. Like, we're trying to give you this little hint. You need to follow this path over here. No, don't go down that path. Trigger. Look at yourself. What does that mean? Grow through it. Move forward. Follow the synchronicities. Now, another thing to keep in mind when you're being triggered is to remember that everyone here is on their own journey. They're on their own path. We all have a reason why we came here, and we all have gifts that we have to offer and a purpose to serve here. So they're learning their own lessons over there, and their process is not for you to judge. You are only you are in control of your journey, and you only have control over your journey. So, you know, when you find your patience is running thin, or that friend of yours is making a bad decision yet again, then remind yourself, like, that's their journey, that's their process, and reframe that once again to thinking about yourself and your own journey and growth. Why is this bugging me so much? What can I take away from this to help me improve my own experience here? Now, some of this might be new to you, and you might even be a little bit skeptical of some of the things that I'm saying. But as I just mentioned, everything is feedback, and there are no coincidences. So if you're watching this, there's a reason for it. This is an invitation to get curious and decide if this is one way you could begin to shift your perspective today in a way that will create positive, rewarding, even exciting change in your life. And it's not really that hard to do. I mean, sometimes when our ego gets in the way and our old beliefs come up and we have some of that inner work to do, that can feel like, this isn't that fun. It's not that awesome. But once you clear some of that stuff and you start moving past it, it gets more exciting. It gets easier. There's more flow. There's more love. It sounds so woohoo, and it's really not. Really, it's simple. So just have some awareness about what's going on around you, what's showing up, why it's showing up. Definitely be kind to yourself as you go through any learning and growing, any shifting in thinking or shifting beliefs. That's work, and when it's stuff that's really deeply entrenched, beliefs and notions, triggered responses that we've been just existing with on the fly, they just show up in the moment. We don't even have a conscious process around that usually. It's just how we react. Instead, I'm inviting you to respond to what's going on around you and reframe that thinking, so in your response, you're coming at it from a place of learning instead of like a victim, why me, why is this happening to me kind of thing. And when you can kind of have that awareness and you're being kind and you're moving through it and you're just allowing what is being put in front of you to be, then that's where you're getting it right. This life is about learning and growing. So when you can put yourself into that position of thinking, okay, not everyone gets all that, and that's okay. As you're going through it and you're shifting, you might find that you're extra frustrated with people because they don't get it. Well, that's okay. Once again, it's not your journey, it's theirs. Just worry about your journey. Worry about your path that you're on. So today I encourage you to stretch your mind a little further and open up to the possibility of moving in a different direction. Perspective is everything. And it can be perspective can be prescriptive and restrictive, or it can be totally freeing and incredibly empowering. So have fun with deciphering the feedback that comes at you, even in the triggering situations, even when it doesn't seem like it should be fun. Enjoy the process, enjoy the growth and learning. Sometimes now when I get triggered, I just laugh at myself. It's funny to me sometimes. Sometimes I still am like, that's a trigger. I need to work on that. There's something there for me to figure out. But other times with things, because like I said, if they're really embedded, that could just be an automatic reaction. Like I'm aware of that trigger. I have thought to myself, this trigger, I need to shift how I'm reacting to the situation. But then it comes up again. You just respond the old way because that's deeply entrenched beliefs. And that's the ego coming back to try to keep you safe. And so try to take it lightly when you can, when there's space for that. It's kind of funny. When synchronicities show up now, because I have this understanding, I get high. It elates me. It lifts me up. It makes me smile from the inside out. It's so cool when synchronicities do the things that they do. And it's good feedback. It's like the thumbs up from the universe. You're on the right track. Keep going in this direction here. Life is pretty cool when you can see that life is pretty cool. Peace and love all.